Good evening, 9:05 p.m., 5/16/2017. Look what showed up this morning. I don't know why it took 2 days for me to notice this. My son wished me a happy Mother's Day. Isn't that sweet? My favorite thing is to be his mama. And he does call me mama in real life. It's the cutest thing. But I didn't come here to talk about my son or Mother's Day. I came on here tonight because how much sabotage do people like Family Services in 65301, Snowy, Missouri, need to commit against someone in order to get their jollies off. Because that's the only thing I can see as any sort of purpose, is for them to get their jollies off, to get their rocks off, to get their kicks. You know, like, you and I might get our kicks on Route 66, but they got this whole other thing. Because it wasn't just the house that my mom gave me, so we didn't have to pay rent, so we could have more to work with, like paying child support and getting a vehicle so he could get that job in Warrensburg at the museum, 29 miles from Sedalia. Okay. It was also the print shop that my mother gave me and him for a wedding present. It wasn't the building itself, it was the equipment, you see. And we paid rent to the building, or to the owners of the building, who lived upstairs in an apartment and who used the kitchenette to the point of angering me because they made everything just so trashy. I mean, there wasn't one time I can think of that I didn't go back there to fix me a cup of coffee or get a drink of water or something, that sink didn't have a bunch of dishes in it and I had to do the dishes. And they even broke my good mug. They used my good clean mug, and we were paying rent on that place, and the kitchenette was in the shop. It wasn't a part of upstairs. So you see, they took that, and I had been sick and stayed home from work that day. Yes, we were trying, believe me. And John came home at noon to check on me. I was fine. I just was feeling a little ooey because that building was kind of cold, and I was pregnant and I had to stand on my feet a lot. When I did correlating, I had to be on my feet because the work surface was up and there wasn't a chair, and there might have been a stool, but mostly I stood up. Okay. Then he went back after we had our little lunch. Came back. I'm like, WTF? He's back. What's up with this? You know, as he's turning the key in the door. They locked me out, he said, while I was on lunch. They're going to keep the equipment. We'll see what had happened. Was they had some shut-off notices, and I forget which utility thing it was. It doesn't really matter. They were shut-off notices. 5 kids in the house, or in the home, And they take off to Kansas City, go eat dinner, leave them there. John went up to check with the guy who had already left, but he didn't know it. And the kids were up there at a freestanding fireplace. I believe it was red or orange, but that doesn't matter either. Trying to cook a frozen pizza in a fireplace. They were that hungry. All their parents were off dining on Kansas City Strip. LDS members. But because they were in with so many people with the advertising, because they did a lot of printing for that, advertisement print, like business cards, and I think they did some signs and different ads in little papers, and that's where I learned to run the typesetter. Yes, I have typesetting experience. And John was either going to have to... Am I looking at that right? I guess I am. He was either going to have to pay the rent, or he was going to have to pay the shut-off notices. And if he paid the rent and not shut-off notices, we wouldn't have any power to run the shop. So we paid the shut-off notices, so we could at least try. But it really galls me that nobody turned them in for anything. The girl was as wild as they come, And the reason I know that is she was like best friends with his former wife Nancy's daughter Robin. And they were just as wild can get. Plus, they were good friends with the judge there, who went to the same church. And I'm kind of sure that a lot of our problems came from him leaving that church where he had a priesthood to join the East Sedalia Baptist Church where I grew up, which was my church home, and where we attended, and where we took Bradley, and where my parents went. I believe they ostracized him, blackballed him for leaving that church. He got a stigma over him. They put a stigma on him. Okay? That's not the only one. We had tried our hand at recycling cardboard. See, I had gotten a payment for over $500 one time. And we took it and bought this old cattle truck. With the high sides. So we could haul those big bales of cardboard up to Columbia, Missouri, and get paid for it. Well, we were doing pretty good. And then he decided we would rent a semi and load it up and take one big load. So he was working late one night, loading that truck. And again, we didn't own the building. I don't know if it was under a lease or rental agreement or whatever. And he called me later, the building's on fire. Well, I was without a vehicle. I couldn't go and watch them put it out. That would have just been totally ludicrous anyway. What could you do? Just stand there and look at it? I don't even know what they determined the cause was. It was on South 65. Everything was a total loss. Let's see, is that the only one? The last one, I mean? That's 3 that I could think of. The recycling business, the print shop, and being unable, even though the opportunity was presented, to not have to pay rent, but be able to get a vehicle to get him to a job and to pay on the back child support. They did this to us. I know it's hard to believe. It's got me so fragged out you wouldn't freaking believe it. But I figured while it was on my mind tonight, and those incidents were strung together so nice and neatly, I would go ahead and present them in this way in this screencast. So, that's all for now with that. Thank you.